Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, a warm welcome to the inaugural day of the Qatar Creates Public Talks. Qatar Creates is a year-round cultural movement and a prominent platform for arts and culture in Qatar. Our mission is to champion and nurture talent, creating a movement that provides widespread access to the best cultural offerings in Qatar. At the heart of our initiative is the One Pass, a membership card offering audiences seamless, direct, and uncomplicated access to all Qatar's cultural treasures and happenings. And now, without much further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce His Excellency Paolo Toschi, the Ambassador of the Republic of Italy to Qatar, who will address you as we collectively celebrate Italian Design Day.
Thank you very much. Al-Khair, rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Let me give you a very brief sense of why this matters to me as Ambassador of Italy, and it matters to Italy, I would say, as a whole. First of all, this is a great opportunity to once again collaborate with Qatar Museums in this magnificent venue, really inspiring. Today we talk about architecture and design, and I think this is one of the most inspiring locations to do it. I want to thank Her Excellency Sheikha Mayasa for all the dedication and all of her friendship over time, and the great collaborations that we advance on so many projects. Today we have an opportunity to focus on the work of a renowned Italian architect who's not only an architect but also leads a very important Italian institution. I'm delighted to welcome here Stefano Boeri and his team. We will be listening from him very articulate, sophisticated illustration of his work, and so I do not claim to substitute that. But let me say a couple words about why his work matters to me and to Italy. Stefano has shifted the public conversation in Italy and globally when it comes to the relationship between nature and the city, and when it comes to integrating nature into the urban space. He has very successfully again, shifted the communication and engaged public opinions in Italy and globally on this very important topic. In doing so, in changing the conversation, we often like to say one voice can change a room. He has changed many rooms, and he has influenced decision makers and the political conversation about this topic. And the topic of integrating nature into the city is a fantastic topic, very inspiring, even for someone like me who's not an architect or a designer. It is very inspiring because so much comes from nature into our lives. It gives us so much. And you all very well know some of the trademarks of Stefano's work, and you all very well know that he doesn't talk or build or design vertical gardens. What he does, he designs vertical forests. And a forest is truly an expression of nature. Nature in the city means powerful, therefore, imagination. So it helps us nurture our imagination. It helps us see so many of the first forms that are at the basis of our imagination, the first forms, the prototypes, the archetypes, Aldo Rossi would have said. It helps us achieve physical health. It helps us achieve psychological health, mental health. It is so important in so many ways and giving us so much. Of course, there are challenges with integrating nature into the urban space. We all like to plant, but it is important to plant well, to plant creatures, vegetable creatures that are healthy, that have the appropriate space, that have a future ahead of them. so that they can contribute actually to the urban space. In doing all of this work and analysis and communication and leadership, Stefano has been touching upon some of the key items of the international agenda. And I want to thank my colleagues, ambassador, notably my friend, the ambassador of the Netherlands, for being here. I joked with him that one of my very favorite architects, and I know very dear also to Stefano and to Her Excellency Sheikha Mayasa, is a Dutch friend, Rem Koolhaas. So the international agenda is extremely concerned with this topic. You've all known about the importance of sustainable development goals. The conversation has shifted over the years, thanks to the work of people and leaders like Stefano. And now, as you know, we speak about environmental, social governance, an ambitious formula that reflects the kind of work that we try to do in this field. Environmental speaks for itself. Social, so we want to integrate, we want to include, we want to bring in. And of course, governance, we want to make sure that topics like this, the integration of nature, is reflected in the decision-making, whether it is in public, in government, or in the private sector. And this, of course, has huge repercussions when we talk about growth, when we talk about our economies, the opportunities, the way finance plays out, and all of our economies evolve. Lastly, really, let me say that all of this clearly, that I try to sketch, is a work in progress. It is an evolving laboratory of ideas. And in a way, I think we all are, some of us resident here, some of us visiting, we all are in a city that represents this concept of laboratory, of work in progress very, very well, the city of Doha, a continuous laboratory. And I want to finish by referencing the work of another Italian maestro, really, who you know all very well, Renzo Piano. And you all know that when Renzo Piano talks about his iconic building in New Caledonia, the Cultural Center, he always indicates that it looks incomplete, although it is not obviously incomplete. And why does it look incomplete? Because he understood, studying the Kanaki culture, the local culture, that in that space, beauty did not only come from the concept of what is made. Beauty also came and also comes from the concept of making, of what is in the making, a continuous creation, a continuous laboratory. And so I think this very inspiring concept very much applies to Doha and to the vision that the leadership has brought forward. There is still a long way to go, and I can assure you Italy is proud to contribute to this future, to the future of Doha and to the future of creative thinking. And I'm delighted that tonight we have an opportunity to focus on it together, thanks to a great architect, Stefano Boeri. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for that wonderful introduction. And again, without much further ado, I would like to welcome Stefano Boeri to the stage. He will present his presentation on green obsession. And I hope we will have a few minutes at the end for a bit of a conversation.
Thank you so much. Thanks, dear Ambassador, for your introduction. Thank you for inviting me to go a little bit faster, talking about what we do, because as you well know, the role, the activity of an architect is always to act as a kind of editor-in-chief. So we are selecting, gathering people that works is a really collective intelligence, the one that produce our result. And so, okay, this is not the real beginning of my speech, but it's okay, I will jump to that. So, in a certain way, what we do, what we have done in the last years is to be farmers of a kind of new possible connection between living nature and architecture, as the ambassador was rightly saying. It's something that we follow it with a certain obsession, and I believe that obsessions are fertile component of our life. Normally, we are used to think that what we have to run if we want to follow the right lifestyle is passions. Well, I don't believe we have simply to manage passion. We have to learn how to manage obsession, because obsessions are often invisible. They are, let's say, not immediately visible. They don't emerge immediately. They come up, they grow up sometime in a very uncontinuous and unlinear way, but it's so important. But at a certain moment of your life, if you are an architect, but not only if you're an architect, but if you're an architect, you start to understand, try to decipher where and how, and which kind of obsession you conserve, you protect, you hide in your inside you. And that's why at a certain moment, basically 25 years ago, I started to work, imagining and dreaming to put together trees and houses, leaves and bricks. And was I was obsessed from that's when I was very young by trees. I believe trees are individuals. You can never find a tree which is totally to another one. They had their own sensitivity, they had their own intelligence, they can communicate, then their trajectory of life is always individual and different. And so that's why in going ahead in my life, in our profession, we worked more and more with this obsession of finding different ways in different climate conditions in different parts of the world to define the best way to put in connection living nature and buildings. This is came with like 10 years ago. That was just after the construction of the first vertical forest, which is, as you know, a kind of prototype. It's really an experiment in Milan. And here we were inviting people from all over the world to come and not simply architects, but researchers, to come and try to see how this prototype was working, and to try also to see how could be possible to improve it, to not simply replicate what we had done, but to do something better. And not only that, because we knew from the beginning that the vertical forest in itself it's maybe an interesting experiment. The idea to put together two towers, one is 115 meters, all the other one is 96, with 21,000 plants, more than 900 trees, 6 to 9 to 12 meters high, and 5,000 shrubs and 15,000 plants of different species, with more than 70 different species, which are quite high biodiversity. But the point was from the beginning to understand that when we have to show, when we had to talk, when we discuss what we had done, the point was not simply, let's say, be satisfied by the construction of one building or 1,000 of these buildings. The point was really much more general, and the real issue, the real question was how could we multiplicate the vegetable and biological surfaces in our cities, how we can try to demineralize the surfaces of our mineral environment, and how we can try to use trees to do what trees are capable to do, to absorb the CO2 that we have already produced. That CO2, which is at the beginning of global warming, that CO2, which is the beginning of glacier melting, of the rise up of the river of the oceans, that CO2, which is at the beginning of global warming and climate change. So that's why we decided to not simply be involved in the designing and realizing vertical forests, but more in general in this attempt to study different ways to implement the biological and vegetable surfaces in our mineral environment. And that's the main theme of this book that we have published two years ago. And this book is really a collection of inspiration that we received from many thinkers, many researchers, many architects, designers, and scientists that are working more or less on the same direction, maybe sometimes much better than what we have done or what we do. Vertical forest. So that was, yes, for sure, was a kind of manifesto. You see here some images of how it works. It's quite interesting to see how this kind of ecosystem, where you can see the cohabitation of 360 humans, 21,000 plants, and basically 21 different species of birds. They cohabit. This is a building who has now turned 10 years in October. And so it's an amazing case study. And we honestly, we have rented an apartment there, and we often go there to study, to understand, to talk with the other tenants, to decipher let's say, the life and the reaction that plants and trees have to different climate conditions, to test if the sensors that help us to decipher the humidity that you have in every single pot on every single floor of the two buildings is or not working as we expect it to work. So it's an experiment because thanks to the presence of the building as this, we have learned so much. We have a botany department in our studio in Milano and in Shanghai, and that's why we know how to intervene. We know how to correct. We know how to maybe change also some of the technologies that, thanks to the help of Arup engineering company, we have learned. This is something that normally we do. We go in Miami in one of the biggest wind tunnel to test the capacity of the single trees to react to extreme windy conditions, for instance. So it's true that thanks to this experiment, we have learned a lot about how to compose, how to combine, how to make these two spheres cohabiting together. Here again, one of the most important issues was about water management. Water management is a very, let's say, delicate, crucial issue when you have to imagine that you have to follow growth of more than 20,000 plants in different condition of humidity, in different condition in terms of wind, and also in different parts of the world. This is a second result of our research, and I particularly love this building. We are in Eindhoven, so I really thank the ambassador for being here. And this is an amazing place in Eindhoven, a strip. It's where Philips was born, and now is, in my opinion, one of the most interesting places for, let's say, where you can observe a process of urban regeneration, which is really a process of urban regeneration. So how they were capable to, sorry, can you go back? Yeah. This building is important because it's a social housing, vertical forest. So it's true that the first one in Milano was, let's say, a construction who was, let's say, extremely expensive in terms also of cost and investment that Heinz and Koima, the two developers, were in research, and also in terms of materials, and also simply because the technology we were using were, let's say, completely innovative. So they had quite a high cost in terms of investment. But here in Eindhoven, we were in condition 2 years ago with a Trudo developer, which is a local, very strong and very brilliant, open-minded developer, to realize this social housing building, which is all for students, for young professionals, it's for rent. And you see here how we were in condition to really drastically cut the construction costs thanks to the use of prefabrication. And the same kind of project, you see here some of users and how we can use the rent of, and the variety of use that you can find in different part of this Trudo Tower. Another version of the vertical forest that we are now building in Utrecht, it's this multifunctional building. And that was another direction of experimentation. So from one side, the idea was, let's try to reduce the cost. Let's demonstrate that what we do is affordable for everybody. Another direction was let's demonstrate that what we do could become a mixed-use building. So it's not simply because we have trees, plants, shrubs, humans, birds, but also because we could really offer a combination of function. In this case, is a combination of commercial, office, and residential at different levels. Again, I'm following the images. This is a project which I just finished in Nanjing, 2 towers. We had another project. Okay, maybe I can go ahead. Okay, this is just the first image. This is another project in social housing in Hangguang in China, just finished, okay. And this is another building in Belgium, in Antwerp, where we were working more on introducing a vegetation, a presence of plants and trees on the roof. And the roof is a public, collective place for all the tenants. And that is, as you can imagine, another possible declination of this, let's say, attempt to overcome the binary opposition between the natural sphere and the artificial sphere in our field. We have produced also a version of smaller scale vertical forest, like in Treviso, with these 3 apartment blocks. And we can go ahead, and we are now developing other totally different version, like this one in Milano. This is a project that we have developed together with Diller and Scofidio, that you probably know well, are, let's say, a very, very important architectural studio based in New York. We are used to do competition with them. We won in this case. And in this case, the experiment of this high-rise called Botanica is not only the fact that we are superimposing different species of plants and trees and shrubs in order to make this building produce an amazing chromatic variability. And this is one of the amazing results of vertical forest. So they're the kind of buildings that continuously change. They change in relation with the sunlight, they change in relation with the seasons, they change in relation with the growth and the life trajectory of every plant. But in this case, can you go back, please? Probably the innovation that we tried to introduce was more related to the materials, to the construction materials. We know well how the use of steel and concrete is problematic from the point of view of production of CO2 during the construction. So the use of wood and timber, as we have done in the slabs of this building in Milano, it's an amazing possible way to try to reduce the excess of CO2 produced by a traditional construction process. And then, for sure, we are extremely interested to study how this idea of putting living nature and artificial buildings together can work in an arid climate. And this is something that we have to study and to learn for a simple reason, that global warming is a serious issue. This is a map, a satellite chromatic map of Milano last August. You see there how the surface, the horizontal surface of Milano was, let's say, a victim of this heat island effect that is now many European cities, not only South European cities, for a longer and longer period of our longer and longer summers. We have to understand that all what we could do, all what we could learn, studying how to implement the biological and green surfaces in cities like Doha, in cities like Dubai, in cities like Riyadh, in cities like Cairo, is absolutely crucial, because it's going to help and to become a model for many other cities on other parts of the planet. Here we are in Cairo, for instance, and this is the construction. We are starting the construction of 3, let's say, middle-sized vertical forests. This is a hotel and 1 office and 1 residential in New Cairo. Then a project which we have presented at COP 28 in Dubai, and this is a prototype of a new version, advanced version of vertical forest. And what makes this project, for me, extremely interesting, that we are putting together different, let's say, sustainable advantages. One is from the point of view of water management. Another is how we are introducing greenhouses and also, let's say, in internal places on the balcony for private vegetable gardens. Then, for sure, the distribution of plants and bushes, and at the same time, the total, let's say, presence of solar panels on basically all the facades that are not covered by the shadow of the plants. So all this together has the capability to create a condition of self-sufficiency which is extremely high. And this is why we are now trying to realize that. And another version of this same, let's say, direction of work is what we have done in Riyadh, where we have proposed a plan to make Riyadh greener. But this is not a plan to do a green city or a forest city, to do something of new. No, we are simply considering one of the central district of Riyadh, and thanks to, let's say, the help of a group of botanists, experts of water management, basically, we have studied a system of urban devices that could shadow the public space, shadow the collective environment, and at the same time introduce green surfaces on the roof, introduce green surfaces on the facade of the building, including this version in terms of trees everywhere. So that was like an amazing, let's say, implementation of all what was vegetable and green, thanks to the system of different, let's say, settlement principles, as you can see here, and different, let's say, devices that can be applied in different parts, in different contexts, in different let's say, areas of Riyadh. Again, this is something that was, let's say, elaborated in relation with a specific local condition, but that can be used as a kind of example for many or possible reference, maybe improved also for many other parts of the world where global warming is, let's say, demonstrating its catastrophic power. One of the things that are more, let's say, complicated, difficult, and at the same time interesting in our work as architects is the combination of research and design. No? Basically, I think that if you are an architect or designer, or if you are, let's say, sharing more or less the same kind of schizophrenia, we know that we have to, let's say, do our best to open our mind to all the possible options related to the future. And we have to let's say, to really open the future to all the possibilities and to study, learn, talk, read. That's really our engine. We cannot get that. We need this kind of complexity. And this is like an approach which is extremely inclusive. We have to include the world, basically. At the same time, we know well that when we have to design something, it doesn't matter if it's a glass table or a building or a part of a city. We should and we have to follow a completely different approach. We have to be selective. We have to exclude in the, let's say, multitude of possibilities all except one. And the one is a material, physical configuration, which has a shape, it has a kind of heaviness. It's something that is three-dimensional. And so this, let's say, contradiction between the necessity to be inclusive and the necessity to be extremely selective is probably what makes our work a little bit schizophrenic and at the same time so crazy and so interesting. Because also I think that this kind of relation has to be accepted as it is. Every attempt to put the inclusive approach has a precondition for design or to constitute and to demonstrate that design a way to explore and to analyze the context. Any attempt to put in a linear sequence the inclusive approach of research and the selective approach of design, I believe it will never really work. So I think it's much better to accept, to be schizophrenic in a way, because sometimes you understand what to do when you describe a place, and in other case you understand the real DNA of a place when you try to test its reaction, designing its future. So I think this is extremely interesting, this kind of paradoxical, schizophrenic, and conflict with two spheres. This explains also why in my life I am not simply a designer, an architect. I am also very, let's say, involved in running some very important institutions, as the case of Triennale of Milano. Triennale was born, and I thank Marco Sammicheli. My friend Marco is here with me today, and he's the director of the Italian Design Museum of the Triennale. Triennale was born in 1923. The palace, the building in the center of the city, where now Triennale Hospital was built on 1933. So we turned 90 years, or basically 100 years, last year. And it's an amazing building. It's an amazing building. I hope you will come soon, or if you are not already know that, where we all used to say it's the house of Italian design, and not simply because it was a house of the maestri of Italian design, and you see 4 of them here, but also because it hosts, let's say, an amazing collection of hundreds and hundreds of design furnitures, hundreds of documents, hundreds and hundreds of videos and pictures and correspondences between these. My mother, Cini Boeri, was part of this story. So when I was a child, I remember very well how this amazing creativity was so strong in Milan in the 60s, in the 70s, beginning of the 80s was working. This is called the serpentone. It's like a very long, like a super long snake, serpentone. And the idea here was to use plastic, polypropylene. Polypropylene was a derivation of propylene, and he was tested by Giulio Natta. Giulio Natta was a scientist, an engineer, who was teaching at the Polytechnic of Milano, and he won the Nobel Prize in 1962, and immediately after, he was involved and was asked by some very brave and courageous entrepreneurs that were based on the north of the city, because they are interested to understand how this amazing new material, who was so flexible, but at the same time so strong, capable to resist to different climate conditions, could be used in the industrialization of furnitures. At the same time, the same entrepreneur were so smart, so brilliant, so open-minded, that were asking some, let's say, new, young, creative designer coming from the Polytechnic or other schools to study how to use these materials in order to create sofa, tables, armchairs, and other furniture that we are used to use in a way also say representing the new lifestyles of the Milanese and Italian bourgeoisie after the Second World War. And the result of these 3 energies, the energies of a bunch of courageous entrepreneurs, the creative energies of a bunch of architects and designers, and the amazing energies of scientists and experts in technology that were developing new materials. Well, these 3 energies were at I believe, the basement, the pillars of the Italian design miracle. And this is what Triennale is. We are not simply representing the story, but we are showing the story. We have just opened this huge environment where we are making visible our archive of furniture, text, document, pictures, video, and so on. And this is more or less what we're planning to do the next year. And I really think that I'm sure that a partnership with what's happened here with the talents that are working here, with Qatar Museum, with all the intellectual energy that Qatar and our hosting could become a very important, let's say, goal for the next future.
Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation, or actually two presentations, since we heard both about Green Obsession and Milano Triennale. And I would like to go back to the first topic and ask you a few questions about this green obsession.
Can you stop the video? Maybe you can show it just later. Thank you so much.
So it seems that your work aims to redefine the relationship between city and nature, and in a way it's a call to action. And you're very explicit in this with even the awards you received for your work, which is very much looking into raising awareness with everybody, but also raising this as a burning issue with policymakers. So knowing that, for instance, construction sector in the world contributes 23% of air pollution, 40% of drinking water pollution, and 50% of landfill wastes, I'm interested to ask, how have you seen the field of design and architecture evolve in response to the growing importance of environmental sustainability? Are there any trends or innovations in the field that excite you and align with the principles outlined in the Green Obsession?
No, well, maybe I try to show some of the possible tools we have to try to reduce the impact of construction processes on climate change. You know? And the use of materials, food, of timber, the use of prefabrication to make the construction process faster, then for sure all what we could do in terms of reducing the consumption of energy. So the shadow it's a scarce resource. It will become one of the most, let's say, important resource in the future, not only in Doha or in Qatar, but I mean all over the world. We will need shadow, to shadow the public environment, to shadow our private space of life. And that's why trees are important, not simply because they absorb CO2, not simply because they produce oxygen, not simply because they absorb the microparticulate 10 or 2.5, that is really what, let's say, is a poison of our wrist. Trees are important because they shadow the horizontal and the vertical surfaces or environments, and this is an amazing help, also in terms of reduction of energy consumption. Imagine that we tested a difference of 30-35 degrees in Milano, for instance, in the vertical floor, on the vertical surface of the building. That means that inside there is a difference of 5-6 degrees, and this is very important in terms of reducing all what is investment, the cost for conditioning air. So I think we don't have one unique answer. We have many answers that are related to the use of renewable energies, solar panels. It's connected with geothermal. It's connected with a much more and more sophisticated water management, which is also another crucial issue, with the use of plants and green, and let's say also with technological innovation. So I believe, for instance, that what we still could learn from some tradition of construction, like in Northern Europe about prefabrication, should be now renovated and reinterpreted in different ways using materials like timber and wood, for instance. And that's what we are trying to do.
Another question that I wanted to pose, and you just brought it up, is that you, in a way, look at the existing solutions, the construction that exists in some parts of the world. I notice you use a lot of wood in construction, not just on the facade.
What would you suggest would be the way to go for countries? You've done projects in Dubai, in Saudi Arabia, here in Qatar, where wood is scarce material. What are the materials you would look into as possible solutions in these arid climates with extreme weather conditions?
It depends. It depends so much. So I think it's for sure. I understand perfectly how wood and timber are extremely expensive also in Europe. In this, well, now it's a little bit. The cost is a bit, but it's still very high. Well, for sure, I was saying a different and a more advanced use of prefabrication is with concrete and also steel. It's something that could help to reduce the impact of the construction processes, also in a very, very peculiar climate condition like the one we have here. But, well, we have many other ways to make our cities, let's say, more sustainable. No, also what I have seen in this day in Doha in terms of capacity to create some surface for shadowing huge public squares or huge public environments. All what will be possible to do to not lose rainwaters. Also, there are scarce rainwater, to reuse grey waters in a building, for instance. So I repeat this, there is not one solution. There are a combination of different solutions, and all of them are, in a way, related with very specific climate conditions. So you cannot say, well, we have to do that. No, it is not true. Maybe here you should better select or do a hierarchy with putting at the first list, part of the list, some of these pillars in Holland or in northern China or in South America. You will find that completely different condition in terms of materials that are available, technologies that are available, and at the same time requests and demands of people.
You've talked a lot about carbon positive buildings in your writings, in your interviews, and I'm curious, how realistic is a possibility of having a carbon positive building in extreme weather conditions again, considering that if you want to have trees and plants on the facades, you would have to use some sort of cooling system, plus the amount of water that would have to be used that might not exist in
cooling
nature.
no.
Could be also a problem for sustainability there.
No, cooling, no. I think the point is to select the plants that are sometimes more in general, often autochthon plants that are capable to resist to the climate condition where they are normally grow. So for sure you need water, and that's why I consider water a crucial component of what is possible to do in order to make our cities greener. And water, you can reach, let's say, this sufficient amount of water thanks to desalinization processes, or now there are some advanced experience. We are working with a Swiss company who has recently produced a device that is condensating humidity of the air and producing water, and with an extreme efficiency. So now we are using in our building this kind of machines that are, thanks to solar panels, transforming air into water. And until some years ago was more, let's say, a dream. Now is a real possibility that start to work. So I think we are in a moment where we have really to try to gather all what we can gather from different technology, from different experiences, from different research, and it's amazing what will be possible to do in the next future. And here, where you have, let's say, some amazing research like the sun. Sun is something that I really think we will have to start to use more and more and more everywhere, everywhere. Also in Doha, where I see it's not enough use that it could be in terms of capacity to help to reduce the consumption of energy.
So do you think by putting together new technological advancements and architectural...
The last solar panel are membranes, are something that you can applicate everywhere. On a window, the glass, the roof, on the marble panel, everywhere. And they work everywhere. Also, they are vertical. Also, they are not exposed to south. That's why I think that in, let's say, in the climate condition like the one of the Gulf or South Italy, for instance, the use of solar, extensive use of solar panels will become more and more successful.
We're very lucky to have you today. I really think we need to finish since we're over time. But thank you so much. And I will stay here. Thank you. Thank you, President Boeri, very much for the presentation and for your wonderful words and for all the work you do for planet Earth. It was a real pleasure hearing you and learning more about what is the future of education, but also architecture. We'll get to education next time, I hope.